Welcome to Cuemby Podcast. Get ready for an exiting journey as we explore the latest, greatest, and innovative technologies, open source tools, and visionary insights. We'll take you on a captivating adventure as we uncover stories, discuss ideas, and connect with leaders changing the game and shaping our digital future.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cuemby Podcast. I'm your host, Angel Ramirez, co-founder and CEO of Cuemby, and this is the podcast, as you know, that we cover technology, business, community, and academia because we strongly believe those are the four legs to shape the future. And today we have a very special guest, Luca. But I'm gonna stop there. I'm not gonna say his last name because he has something to share very interesting about his last name. Hi Luca, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. All good on my side. Yourself? All good?
I'm doing well. Thank you for being here. I know that you have something that you want to say about your last name, because I was asking you back off. It's like, how can I pronounce your last name? I didn't want to say it wrong, even though that I love the Italian and I was trying to learn it, but I couldn't pronounce it correctly. So you told me something very funny. Tell me.
Yeah, so the problem I have very often when I go to conferences is that they struggle to pronounce my surname because in Italian you read every single letter more or less. There aren't, let's say, cut on sounds or whatever. And the Z is not, let's say, a soft Z, is like hard Z, it's like Zeta. So in order to facilitate everyone that is not Italian, I usually translate my surname to English. That if you take like the first half, that is mezza, it means half in English. And lira is the whole currency in Italy, so it's basically 50 cents.
That was amazing. That was amazing. So Luca Mezzalira.
Yes. Perfect.
Or, as you say, could be 50 cents.
Yes. It's way easier.
No, but it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, Luca, that you're here with us because, as I was saying before, we focus on those four legs because for us, I mean, at the end, the future is shaped by those. If you look at it in any way, it's either community, academia, technology, business. All that is always involved in the future of a world. And but I want to do one step back before getting into those four legs and get to know a little more about you. What I can tell the audience, you've done a lot. It's a lot. The question would be like, what you haven't done, but I think, of course, we have to always start with like, tell me about Luca, what you've done, what can you tell us about your life?
So it's 22 years that I'm in the industry. I started in Italy, self-taught. I left school when I was 16. And started to work in a factory after 5 years when I was studying overnight about tech. And back in the days, there weren't these fancy training courses everywhere and social media or anything. It was just the good book. But in Italian, obviously, there weren't many that were too advanced because we were translating from English literature. And therefore, I was buying from Amazon.com because Amazon didn't exist in Italy. So I was buying like books in Italy, books in America to arrive in Italy and then translate through not a digital, but a physical vocabulary. And basically, it's how I learned English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. After that, I started as employee, started as developer, and then I started. Then after 1 year, I tried my path as freelance because in my hometown, there weren't many agencies, as we called them back in the days. There were like 2 or 3. Therefore, I said, okay, let's try to be more broad and see what the world is offering to me. And from there, basically, I started a couple of years alone. Then I hired my first employee, and then in 9 years, basically, I arrived to handle a team of internal and external of roughly 20 people. And then I spent like 3 months in Silicon Valley, where I understood that probably in Italy I couldn't find what really tech means in the deep sense of the word, as a community, and you mentioned about learning, training, and stuff like that. You find a mild way in Italy, but I thought to let's say sell everything, move to UK, where I started as a lead engineer, then principal engineer, software architect, chief architect, VP of architecture. Now I'm a principal architect in AWS.
No, amazing and wonderful. That's why I was telling that it's a wonderful career. I was reading to your background, which I'm pretty sure that there's a lot more, but it's so much you can put in a small space. But also I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you wrote 2 books. Is that correct?
I have 2. The third one is almost done. 4.5 chapters to go. So this week probably I will finish the 5th one, and then I will have 4 chapters to deliver by June. Then by end of November, it should be available to everyone. Is the 2nd edition of my bestseller called Building Micro Frontends.
Nice. And we do the shameless plug always at the beginning. So we're gonna put here the links so they can find your books. And as soon as you have the 3rd one ready, let us know that we're gonna include it.
Thank you very much.
Of course. I mean, something that I can relate to your background is books. I have 2 kids, so I have to share this small story. And we now are in the process of learning how they learn. And I was sharing with my oldest one. That's how I started learning, just like you, like reading books. At our time, we didn't have the amazing connectivity that now on YouTube University we have only the books. So I shared that with you, like the love for books, and I appreciate that. By the way, I want to give you kudos of writing books. I think people that write books is a way to give back what you learn and put it out there. So can you tell us a little bit more about that experience of writing the book, and especially a technical book, because it's not that easy, I guess.
Yeah. To be honest, so I'm currently working on a script for my next video on YouTube about writing books. So you are spot on this stuff. So writing a book is complicated. It's complicated for many reasons. It's usually defined as a marathon more than a sprint, because for writing a book that is quite, let's say, dense of, let's say, learnings, you need to spend around a couple of years working on it, a year and a half sometimes. Less than that, you might scratch the surface of what you really can do. So you need to spend the right amount of time internalizing what you want to say, how you want to say, understanding and dive deep into the topic that you want to talk about. Usually, I recommend to start with something that you are familiar with, that you feel that you master it, because otherwise it becomes, if you have like 50% of the things that you know and 50% you don't, then 2 years can become probably 3. Then it depends how long you spend writing the book. I usually write in my spare time, not while I'm working, and therefore that complicates everything. So probably if you can work solely on the book, it's a different time frame. But for me, because I'm doing evenings and weekends sometimes, that is more or less the timeline that I have. In general, the main struggle at the beginning is in identifying the topics, because you have you want to write about everything, but it's difficult to filter out the noise and create a roadmap. So my technique is very simple. I try to reverse everything that I have in my head without filtering out anything in a mind map. And the reason being is that we as a human beings, our brain is not designed for remembering, it's designed for connecting. So if you visualize what you have in your brain, then you start to, let's say, filter better and understand better the narrative of what you want to say. The other cool thing is that when you think about every creative process, you tend to diverge first and converge after. And when I say diverge, it means that you don't want to filter out your thoughts. You just want to visualize literally everything. So if you have everything in front of you, yes, there is a lot of noise, but from noise you can, let's say, start to filter out and find, let's say, the path that you are looking for. And at the end, usually this process takes a couple of weeks for me, because the other problem and it's quite common for everyone, you don't start to just brain dump everything that you have in your head and that's it. You need to think about, also rethink about what you have written, understand if you really have shared everything in that visual map and so on or not. And therefore it takes time. So I usually take like a break between this process of 1-2 days, so I can see the same thing with different eyes and different thoughts. And usually the other cool thing that happens is that you are thinking in background about that. And therefore, when you're thinking in background, the next time that you look at the mind map, you say, okay, yeah, I was thinking that, but in reality, I meant something else. And when you have that and you start to rationalize, you create more or less the main topics that you want to cover. At that stage, when you have clarity on that, vast majority of the publisher will ask you, unless you go self-published, but vast majority of the publisher ask you to work and understand what really is unique about your book. Because obviously, if they want to publish something, they would make money out of it. And therefore, you need to find an angle that is unique, is your own angle. And therefore, you usually start to do some researches and start to look into, okay, what other authors have covered, how they have covered, why I have a different angle, and so on and so forth. So your experience definitely in that topic matters, because every single person is a snowflake, has a different experience, have seen different things, have internalized different things, and therefore it's important that you look into this topic thoroughly. And when you start to write down, basically based on your list of topics and the research, you start to create like a table of content. Table of content are user fluid, are not that you define 2 years before and then they will stick for in the same way forever. So you usually spend time refining during the process, because while you are discovering more, while you make, let's say, you write some chapters, you start to understand, oh, maybe this doesn't work, or maybe this one should be shifted somewhere else and not in this position. And then, it's an iterative process, because people usually think, oh yeah, writing books is impossible because you need to write, I don't know, minimum 100, 200 pages, 300 pages. My second one, for instance, was around 330 pages. But you don't think about pages up front. Usually the main challenge is starting. And therefore, my technique that I use every single time is basically first take one chapter, a random one, whatever you feel more comfortable to talk about immediately, and then breaking down the chapter in a list of subtopics that are needed for this specific chapter. And those subtopics are not related to paragraphs, are just topics that I want to cover. And then based on that, I start to take like the smallest thing that I can do. It could be a diagram that I need to design or whatever it is, and I start to make progress. That usually helps a lot, because our brain in general of human beings are wired towards winning and finding a way to championing what we're doing. So if you start to create, if you're not too harsh to yourself that you think, oh yeah, in 1 week I write a chapter, but you start to create like small wins alongside every single day with discipline, you are capable to smash like chapter after chapter. But the cool thing is that because you see that, oh yeah, I wrote a paragraph yesterday and today I can write another paragraph and tomorrow another paragraph, at the end of the month, the chapter is done. And this mindset and let's say strong discipline help me not only on writing books but in general in life, because the problem that many people are struggling with is procrastination, and procrastination is a problem also for me. But when you start to break down anything into the smallest unit that you can do, you usually have, let's say, a solid start, and you can continue to iterate on that because you see that there is progress. When our brain sees progress, is more, let's say, keen to move ahead and continue this process. And that's basically the 3 books, 2.5 books that I've written. I usually tackle in this way, trying to, let's say, visualize also the path. Because, for instance, in every book I created a timeline where I usually see, okay, so this month I do this chapter, that month I would do the other chapters. Then sometimes works perfectly, and maybe I can save a couple of days before the end of the chapter. Sometimes I go long and it takes like longer, but it doesn't really matter. The thing is, the more you are capable to not remember and offload your brain towards something that is visually helpful for you, then the better you will perform over time.
No, I appreciate so much those insights, because what I'm taking, and I know that I'm going to oversimplify, but I'm taking something very interesting here. So first, always start with the big concept and break it down into small units. And then, of course, try to always get the small wins, right? Because I think you say something very interesting, like about our brain loves to win.
Yeah.
And if we put all these strict super deadlines and then we fail one, maybe okay, but when we start failing couple one, because we will, that's the nature of the process.
Absolutely.
Taking those small wins, I took that one as a very, very interesting tip, because it is true. And if I may, I could be wrong, please correct me, but this process that you described, very, very, very in line with the process that you might go through as a solutions architect, when you have to basically look at a huge problem and then say, like, let me start here. So is that something related? How would you relate that into this
in
process?
Everything, I would say, even for personal tasks. Usually I tend to break them apart in smaller items, and I know that sometimes feels let's say dumb, because you are thinking, oh yeah, I'm doing just this tiny bit. But there are some scientific studies that explains that more you are capable to succeed, the more you are willing to succeed. There is another trick that I use time to time where the task is really daunting. That is basically the 5 minutes rule, where you do that task for 5 minutes. Even if you take momentum, you stop after 5 minutes. After a couple of times that you do that, you will starve. You are basically starving to finish that task because you see progress. But because you have the rule of 5, you stop at 5 minutes, wherever is the state of the task. And the next time you will be more into finishing the task properly, because when you do a couple of times, that you know that you start, your mindset start to wire. Okay, so I need to finish that stuff. Another cool thing that I tried and works very well with me, not with everyone, but it works very well with me, is setting up a task the day before. So for instance, or the week before. So usually what I do is, if I know that I need to do a POC for a customer or whatever, I tend to set up the IDE and the scaffolding, the project, and whatever, the last hour of the day that I have, or even on Friday, for instance. I usually plan the week ahead with the key things. I take a look on the meetings. I know that I need to spend time doing X, Y, Z. And this thing that basically for me requires little effort at the beginning is a massive boost when I take on board that task, because I already have, let's say, something ready. I just need to, let's say, focus on the task at hand more than thinking about, okay, now I need to open the ID, now I need to create this title, now I need to do this. That is super annoying at the beginning because you want just to do your stuff. So if you do when you are, let's say, almost done in your day, usually it works, or at least for me, it helps a ton to accomplish easier the task.
So creating a streamlined or small focused task.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's your strategy to make sure that everything that you have, or at least your day, is accomplished. That's very interesting.
Yeah, usually every day I write down, let's say, a goal for the day, and basically I don't add more than 1 or 2 goals unless it's an admin day, as they call them, where they had to smash a lot of small tasks. But that helped a ton, because at the end of the day, usually I do a sort of retrospective, adding lowlights and highlights that I have during the day. That is another thing that I've seen people struggling with, because for our mental health, it's extremely important that we cheer upon small wins. It's not only when I don't know, we are promoted or we win a prize or whatever, that we should cheer up. Every day you have something to cheer up, and even the smallest thing helps the next day to do better, and therefore you're trying to create mechanisms to trick your brain and say, okay, so tomorrow I want to do more. And that for me is extremely important. It helped a lot, especially in the last 2 years.
That's interesting. Actually, I would like to bring something in here that may have maybe you can help me also to see how we're doing here. I have two questions. One is, how will you handle those setting goals, 1 or 2 per day, when as a team? Because individually, I think I understand, but as a team, how you set it. And the other thing is, recently, for example, we implemented a really small rule that at the end of the day, just in one sentence, what was your accomplishment? And close with that. How would you manage that? Like, what's your opinion in those cases?
So as a team, you talk about the development teams.
There's a team and you need to accomplish that.
Yeah. So usually, when I was engineer and tech lead and principal engineer, what I have witnessed is that very often teams failed because they're not spending too much time thinking about tasks. They just roughly, let's say, define some tasks loosely, in a loosely fashioned way, because it's boring, they want to start coding or whatever. But it's usually where the problem lies at the end. I don't know if you have experience, but the same, but I have experienced several times till I fix this problem. That very often, you arrive to write some code, you write everything, you work in a team, and the last 2 or 3 days of a sprint, you basically spend time fixing the merge that you have done. That is extremely common in my experience. And when I started to look into that, I started to see what was the pattern. The pattern was staying too long outside the main branch. Because feature branches basically stick there for, I don't know, 2-3 days, then the merge back, and then if you're doing this way, every single person in a team does that. It means also that basically you have, let's say, you stay 3 days or 2 days out from main, and then suddenly you merge, but it's the same for others, and therefore there is a massive chunk of code that has to, let's say, work together alongside the others. It's complicated. Even with trunk-based development, it's faster usually this thing, and everyone says, oh yeah, you always work on main. Yes, it depends how big is the project, but in general, what I've understood is, if we fix the problem on defining the tasks, we fix the problem on staying in main more often and for a shorter amount of time. So the idea is that I implemented, I've seen working, is very simple. So I forced everyone to think, despite whatever is the task, creating some subtasks or item that takes no longer than a couple of hours. Despite it, you don't accomplish the end of the story, you stay out from main 2 hours. And I even implemented a force merged into the settings. So the team, no matter what, they have to merge before the 2 hours. Otherwise, the system will automatically merge. And that means that they break main and everyone is impeded to go ahead. After the first month was a bit bumpy, we started to do that, and we never had any more problems on, we need to spend 1 day on merging, or we cannot do the demo because there was this problem. Because it's the mindset that completely changed. Very often people would point out that, the developers are not good enough. That's not the reality. The reality is, in every single thing that I've seen and witnessed in the tech industry, vast majority of the time, the solution is not where you think it is. People are claiming, microservices are bad, or monoliths are bad. The problem is not the architecture that is bad. Architecture is the easiest thing to point the fingers to, but it's the process that you need to look into for understanding if you set up the organization the proper way to succeed with a distributed model or distributed system, or if your infrastructure is capable to let's say handle the traffic that you have in a monolith, and maybe you need to figure out something different. There are several things that very often I've seen people underestimate and pointing the fingers towards the most, let's say, easiest person / thing that happens, more than holistically looking to the situation and the context.
Yeah, we tend to and then the word is blame everything else but the process.
Yeah.
It's we always think the process is correct, which is usually the thing that drive everything. You have the right process, as you mentioned, like you establish that one rule. It was one rule, but as you say, after a month, it basically became very easy to that. That's amazing. Actually, that's a great idea. I'm gonna see if we can implement it.
You should try. Trust me, it works. If I know that at the beginning is scary and people won't feel comfortable, but in at least I did that was 12 years ago, and since then I implemented in 2-3 places with all the same outcome.
Wow.
So.
And I mean, even before actions was available, so it was probably a bunch of scripts running in the background making it happen, right?
Yeah.
Wow. But in question, how you suggest that we handle failure? And let me be more context based here. So failure means, of course, as you say, at the beginning, it's going to be bumpy. Let's say that people cannot reach their goals or their task 1 day, 2 days, 3 days in a row. How you handle that? How you can make that back on track?
Obviously, you need to dissect why this person or this team didn't reach the goals. But in general, you usually reduce the amount of work at the beginning in order to accelerate right after. So you need to. So first of all, failure for me is part of the process. If you want to win, you need to fail. Period. There is this in certain cultures. There is this idea that failure is a negative aspect. That for me is not. It's just part of the process, and therefore, when you think about differently, so failure is not. Let's say an issue, especially in a system like let's say a software that is completely empirical, because it's not scientific. And if it's not scientific, a problem is solved through test and learn. There are several cycles that you can apply, and Scrum is one of the many, but if you think about Kanban, it's the same. All of them are trying to apply a very simple concept that is starting from the PDCA cycle, that is plan, do, act. What is it? Plan, do, PD, plan, do, act, check and act. Yeah, the C, I was missing the C. And the PDCA cycle is amazing because you basically start to iterate constantly on, I have an assumption, I apply my assumption, I check that assumption, provide the outcome that I expected, and if not, I act upon it. The thing about software is exactly that. Constantly iterate on that. And when you look into this part, in my opinion, you need to, if your assumptions are constantly wrong, you need to start to look into how you can make them right. There is too much cognitive load maybe for the team, or we expected the team was more senior than in reality they are. So there are a lot of gear that you can use in order to, let's say, start to create a winning mindset. But I think it is imperative in order to have high-performance teams to understand the throughput. Kanban, for instance, is big on understanding the throughput, and when you set a limit for a specific column, you can change it if you see that doesn't work. Therefore, depends what you need to express inside your team or inside your system, you use the right tool for the job. Because the reality is all those things that we mentioned so far are just tools. It's up to you to understand them and understand where and when to apply them. Because very often, it's like in tech, they say, oh yeah, because you must use X. For me, the absolute sentence in tech doesn't exist anymore. Because in reality, it's always a trade-off. And you need to understand your context. You need to understand how you would, let's say, implement a successful business. That doesn't mean that your software is the most amazing, most cutting edge solution ever in the world. It's just a software that solves specific problems. Customers are looking for that. They don't care that behind the scene there are 20 million microservices or there is a node monolith written in whatever language. The important thing is that we start to wire our heads towards solutions more than technology, because technology is just a tool towards the meaning.
I like that last phrase, because I mean, I'm sure as a as a solution architect, you basically face this every single day.
Oh yeah.
Like you have to manage the expectations between what a client or a stakeholder is looking for, and then you have to find how you can solve that problem rather than thinking about what technology, as you already mentioned. Like, can you tell us about that? Because I think that usually is the next level when we are in a career. Like, let me put it now as I'm a software developer. I started as a junior and I want to advance my career. So what are the things that makes that career towards a solution architect, let's say, that I trade off in my path that I need to learn?
I believe, as a developer, you need to put yourself outside your comfort zone. The comfort zone usually is coding. And when you move to architecture, the vast majority of the time, people think that it's literally a bunch of diagrams and you choose the technology stack, super cool doing the architecture part and so on. Unfortunately, it's not. That is probably 10% of your job. There are different aspects that you need to understand and master as an architect. One of them is what we in the past we were calling soft skills. For me now are hard skill, like communication, empathies, being able to stay with people, speak with people, understanding the context. And I think that the main mistakes I've seen so far with customers, but in general in my career, is that when I walk to a customer meeting and never met a customer before, I usually ask, okay, so what we're trying to achieve here. So what are your SLAs? What is your latest requirement, availability requirement, security? What I need to look at when we are doing this thing. Despite it might be a very tiny things, in reality, those questions are the ones that are leading you towards the solution. Many of my colleagues that are telling me it's quite funny shadowing me, because I speak like in a meeting. 80% of the time, I don't talk about AWS technologies or anything. I solve the problem on where it lies. So I need to understand what the business wants. I need to understand what are the architectural characteristics that you need to apply. And if you don't have an answer, we need to, let's say, work backwards in order to find this answer. And very often, you find very interesting assumptions that are quickly they are diverging usually inside the team. And if there isn't alignment, then creating the same architecture is very difficult. So for me, the trick here is trying to ask the right questions and being open to not one solution. In modern architecture, I don't believe the best solution exists or a design pattern that solves them all. You need to understand several things from the skills of your teams, how they are, how they are composed, what is the communication structure of those teams, what you need to design, what the business wants, what are the requirements. I don't know, you need in Europe like GDPR, or you need data sovereignty. There are Basel security, for instance. If you think about that, maybe there are certain institutions that require a different level of security, redundancy, data replication. So there are bazillion of things that you need to think about. And those will lead towards the direction of travel that you need to take a decision on the architecture. But without all of that, you are designing in a vacuum something that could work or might not. But then you cannot blame the architecture that doesn't work. The problem is you are not asking the right questions. And questions are, in my opinion, one of the key aspects as an architect, not because you want to, let's say, challenge people. You want just to make sure that you are designing for the right trade-off. And very often, something that is considered by an engineer an anti-pattern, it might be a viable solution for what you need to do. And sometimes, you need to pass from not amazing, let's say, stages of a software lifecycle in order to arrive to a more stable and mature stage, because you are missing too many components. If you are jumping from, an old ERP monolith and move to a distributed system with the same team, I can guarantee you that is not going to happen. You need to figure out what is the journey to arrive there, if you really want to arrive there, if it's really needed to arrive there also. And therefore, it's very important that as an architect, you look into all the different things that compose what they call a social technical system, that is social first and technical after. If we don't look into that, the vast majority of the time, engineers are looking at about the tech stack, how to create a workload. I want to use the latest cool system, latest cool compute service offered by a cloud provider. Then that for me doesn't move the needle. What moves the needle is something that solves problems that for the business that makes our customers happy. And the other challenge I would say for businesses is that they don't provide enough data points to show the impact that a team has made on the customers, because that is a real boost. If you start to wire the engineers towards being a product engineer, a person that not only think about tech but thinks about product, the thing that you can have in return are amazing. I've seen, let's say, people contributing on the roadmap, helping the product people to shape new features because they started to look differently about what they were doing.
Yeah, you say something very interesting here, and we were talking about it recently as well. Like there's a mini series that we were doing about digital transformation and explaining, like, because we might think that the entire world, because we are in the community of technical people, that everyone is already digitalized. And what we see, because we usually talking to a lot of businesses that are not, is that there's a lot of businesses that is still not digitalized. And I'm not talking about website, I'm talking about like entire processing. Yeah. But we were defending and you mentioned it, that it has to be people first. If your team hasn't buy into the let's absorb this X process, technology, or solution, it won't work. And I think that's kind of what you're leaning towards too, right?
Absolutely. I can tell you a fun anecdote. So when I was leading my team of architects, I was before joining AWS, I was VP of architecture for a live sports streaming platform, and there I had like roughly 10 architects towards the end. And usually I always say to them, bear in mind that 30% of your job is being technical, understand what they're doing, obviously improve yourself or whatever. But 70% of your job is creating empathy and cross the bridge between teams. And the people aspect, in my opinion, is extremely important as an architect, because at the end of the day, you are basically trying to influence different levels of the organization. So Gregor Hope calls like the architect elevator, with the idea that you have to jump into this elevator and you go to the machine engine and talking with the developers and explain and talk their language, and you need to wire your ideas towards the language. And on the other side, you go up to the highest floor of the skyscraper, and you need to speak with the C-suite to convince them to invest on a specific thing. And I believe that is one of the most beautiful jobs, in my opinion, that are out there. But nowadays, I think is also a bit underestimated and minimalizing to, oh yeah, but just an architect is just one that is drawing some diagrams. It's by far the opposite. I think diagrams is just, let's say, a way to convey specific things, but there is a journey behind that helps you to reach that, why the arrow is designed in that way, and why two boxes are closed or splitted, or should be just a single box. And that, is often underestimated, because yes, it's true, you probably can easily build whatever you want using a container or whatever it is. But then is it the most efficient? or is the following the security requirements that the security wants? Is it the one that it will scale better? There are a lot of questions behind a single, a rectangle in the diagram. Behind an arrow, is it synchronous? Is it asynchronous? How we are going to communicate? Is through event? Is point to point? What is the security posture we want to have? And bazillion of other questions that you need to ask. Not every time, but you need to, let's say, create a list of stuff that you need to constantly review every now and then, and having this idea where there cannot be a person that decides for everyone. Has to be let's say, a person that leads the discussion and move towards specific things, but not with arrogance, with the idea of bringing on board all the others, because otherwise they are not going to work with you. They're going to work against you, despite you have the most brilliant idea ever. And that's why, for me, empathy and communication are two skills that are not anymore, let's say, soft skill, are definitely core skills, not only for architects, for everyone, because you can, let's say, reach way more in life when you are capable to do that. And, I know that there are introverts that might find it difficult, but we need to make, let's say, a bit of effort in order to try to do our best. I'm not, let's say, the most social person in the world, but I like to be with people. And if I need to take my time because I need that sometimes, I will do that. And I will miss some opportunities, but I will try to make the best I can do in the time that I have.
No, you spot on. I 100,000% agree with you, because I also believe that effective communication, and with you, I'm with you on the side of the people that are shy, and that's understandable. You don't have to change yourself, but if you effectively communicate with empathy, definitely you're gonna have a better, I'll say, social interaction. I would say also a better harmony on the team.
Absolutely.
That will allow us to move things quickly. And I want to use that because that was a perfect segue to ask you more about the other side that you have that we haven't met yet, we haven't said yet, which is the part that you do a lot of public speaking webinars. You talk to a lot of people, and that speaks volumes about your leadership and the community. And I want to know more about it, because I think education in mentoring in your line of work and your personal, it means a lot, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as I explained, that I started from English books without having social and all the other things that we have today. Back in the days, I remember vividly that when you have a problem, you need to open a website with a forum. You post your message, and someone at some point will reply, hopefully. And that mindset of constantly sharing experience, try and errors, and it's intrinsic in me. And what I learned is that if you really want to master a topic, the only way to master it is sharing. There isn't any other way, because when we think that we have done something, I don't know, a project or whatever it is, but then suddenly you realize that, oh yeah, we have done that, but if I need to explain to someone else, I struggle, then you're not mastering. But because you need to write it down or do a talk or whatever it is, you force yourself to make connection in your brains that before wouldn't, let's say, happen, because you cannot give for granted that people knows what you know. And therefore, this process enables you to, let's say, discover more and really drill down into topic. Writing a book, even if it's like, it's exponential, the amount of mastery that you can reach, because I can easily talk about the things that I've written for days without any problem. But it's like an introspection that you do, and you start to really rationalize things. And in order to rationalize, visualization, as I mentioned before, is for me the best technique, because you cannot stick everything in your head. It's just a waste of your energy. The real energy is connecting. So let's use the brain for what it's designed for. So connecting things. And I think is, I deliver by now like over 300 talks worldwide, from keynotes and regular talks, meetups, conferences, you name it. And for me, the main learnings is definitely, let's say, people And especially in the last, I would say, 5 years, I spend more time instead of going to a talk of a colleague or whatever, talking with people. The connection, the ideas that are coming from there, the energy, especially because people that are going to conferences usually are extremely passionate about what they do. And I'm the same. I'm extremely passionate about what I'm doing. So therefore, when you find a person that shares your passion, and maybe from a different angle, because obviously everyone has different things to say and to a different experience and background, I think is like the most fantastic thing that you cannot have on a virtual environment. You can always pick up like a talk later on nowadays on YouTube or in the conference website, whatever. But the real connection with the person to drill down in a topic or whatever, it's something that doesn't happen very often. And I encourage everyone, honestly, to spend a bit of more time on also on the other part and engage with people that maybe they don't know, because the talks are great. And engaging with people is even better, because in the long term, you open up your network. You never know how the things could pan out for you. That there are bazillion of benefit of this. So usually I try to strike a balance between watching sessions and spending time with people. But I have seen myself in the last few years spending more time with people than attending sessions.
Wow. Something that I often get asked, a lot of people want to start doing that. Like, hey, I want to give a talk, or I wanted to go and talk about something. But of course, the imposter syndrome and everything comes to you. Like at that moment, like how should I? Why am I going to be the one talking about this and all that? So, what would be your advice to those? And if you remember your first talk, for example.
Oh yeah, I remember my first talk. The first talk was how to use JavaScript in Photoshop.
Oh my goodness.
For automating certain tasks. Because I had like a sort of lighting talk on a meetup. And it was an Italian community where we were talking about Flash and let's say product from Adobe, stuff like that. And there basically they gave me like 10 minutes. I have no idea what to talk about in 10 minutes, but let's give it a go. And that week I was doing this exercise in my own company because I needed for a website. I said, it's pretty cool. So because I had to automate roughly, I thought it was 120 banners, export in different dimensions, position things differently. And it wasn't very well known in, 2005, how to automate, let's say, Adobe products through code. And therefore I thought, okay, so I spent like a week working on this. Maybe I can summarize the learnings in 50 minutes. It went okay-ish, not amazing, but was fine. But for me, the recommendation is, first of all, bear in mind, there is always a person that was like you a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, that are looking for your content. Because what you learn, despite these small things, if you share it, can be helpful for someone. And let's say the important thing is that you don't have to think, I'm doing this because I want to become the most famous person in the world. It's very unlikely that it's going to happen, especially in tech. There are many people that are doing, let's say, incredible things, and they never did a talk in their life. And it's fine. The thing that you need to do that, and this should be your main driver, is the passion of sharing something that you have learned. And understanding that there are two things that you will gain. Mastery the topic, because you are forced yourself to explain to someone else, and that for me is invaluable. It's like probably the key aspect of my career and how I became the person that I am. Because considering it's like almost 21 years that I'm sharing what I'm learning, either through blog posts, videos, and whatever. And the other thing is that someone else will benefit from that, because the way how you explain things might be different from how others are explaining things, or you take like an angle that was unexpected that people are looking for. And therefore, it's not a waste of time sharing your experience, either for, let's say, self-learning and personal improvement, or for other people. But don't do that for the sake of, oh, I need to look cool to people and one day I will land to an amazing job. That's not the way. So you need to think about the community. You need to think about the way how you're growing, the fact that today you have the possibility to go on a website and scan through bazillion of articles on similar things. It didn't happen casually. It's because 20 years ago there wasn't this possibility, and nowadays we are extremely lucky to have this let's say massive knowledge base that is shared across the industry by different people.
That's true, and I can tell you're very passionate about it. As soon as you started talking about it, it's like, I can tell like that is something that is goes close to home.
Oh yeah.
Before we get into the last session, I want to ask you one more question, because you mentioned something that we strongly believe in, and I don't know. I wanted to know your opinion about what community means to you.
But community is the reason why I'm doing this job. The fact that I found, so if you think about other industries outside here, I was thinking like when I started my career in a factory, there isn't such things. There isn't the factory community. There isn't the idea of sharing tips and tricks, because potentially it could be a person could, let's say, be better than you, so you might risk that you lose the job, or you are not going to get promoted because you teach something to someone else. And this industry is completely different. This industry is completely open to a certain extent. Yes, there are situations where are following especially in certain countries, are following the similar pattern of other industries for promotion or career advancement or whatever it is. But nevertheless, if you think holistically, we are such in an amazing industry that help us to really learn wherever we want, because there is someone that has the same passion of us to explain different things. And I think that the community for me is the first thing that I think in the morning, and the last one that I leave before going to sleep, because I did so many things. I created one of the largest community in Europe for JavaScript before pandemic. I counted like 13,000 people here in London, and it was amazing. We had like every month, and I was organizing by myself, so nothing too crazy. But I had like an average 100, 150 people per event. That is basically a conference very often in certain countries. And we have like amazing speakers, sometimes from the community, sometimes external speakers. It doesn't really matter, but the bound of sharing a passion about the same thing allow me to learn more about JavaScript, to learn different techniques, understand new things that are happening in the industry. It was just phenomenal. And nowadays, it's even better. There are new ways to do things, to do community. I have my community on architecture that was created around my free newsletter called Dear Architects. And that for me is incredible, because in 5 years now we are almost 15,000 subscribers. And every Saturday night I write the newsletter. Every Saturday night through the weekend till Monday evening, I have like a lot of people sending me messages and discussing in LinkedIn about the topic that I covered. It's just like a constant evolution that is happening every single week, writing that newsletter. And I couldn't be happier, because during pandemic, unfortunately, I didn't find motivation on moving online, the in-presence meetup. But I created this newsletter because I thought that is a good service for the community. And even if I have 30 people and these 30 people find value in my newsletter, it will help. And funny enough, last year around October time, I was in Manchester for a customer. I was waiting for my train to go back to London. And a person passed by me. And they looked at me, they was staring at me. We didn't understand if I was doing something funny. And I said, "Oh, are you the guy behind Dear Architects?" I said, "Yes, I am." "Oh, thank you very much for the newsletter. It's absolutely amazing. I read it every Sunday." And then he went off to the train. But just that comment for me meant the world. It was like 5 years doing this every Saturday. And having a person completely random in a random city that was waiting for his train, stopping by just for thanking me about that, it was like, you understand that you have a dent in the world, and even if it's just a single person, for me it's like incredible. Like it's the power of what you can really do if you believe in community, if you believe in sharing your knowledge.
No, we share the same sentiment. Definitely, yeah. It is the most rewarding thing ever. And especially that's why we do this podcast, because at the end it's like bringing someone like you to more audience and say, hey, look, this is something that you can also do, and someone that you can follow, someone that you can learn from. Like, definitely we share the same sentiment. That's amazing that you shared that story. And I know we could be here for hours, because but we had to go to the last section, because otherwise we were gonna be here for forever. And this is something that the team always prepares, like 5 questions. You can answer however you want. It's just to like close up in a fun way and learn more about you. So here goes the first one. So I know that the team is gonna put it here. It says, if you could describe micro frontends with a movie title, what would it be?
I think Ocean's 11, because because if you think about that, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is having a bunch of independent professionists that are assembling together the biggest heist of the world in Vegas. In this case, it will be digital, but the idea is very similar.
Wow, that's amazing. And I would never thought about that, but that's actually incredible. I love it. Next one says, where's the most unexpected place you've given a talk?
Okay, so an easy one could be a hotel room. That happened several times. But in reality, I think the less comfortable place when I deliver a talk was in my kitchen around midnight a couple of years ago, because I was doing a talk for a conference in Australia. And therefore, let's say the time zone between Australia and London is not very easy to accommodate. And therefore, I basically did this talk between midnight and 1 a.m. Standing on my kitchen without all my gear. It was just my laptop, and that's it.
Wow. Yeah, that would be very unexpected. So it says, if you weren't in tech, what career would you have chosen? That's an interesting one.
I was very confused when I was 16 on what I wanted to do, and that's why I started in a factory, easy, not thinking about. So I buy time while I'm thinking what I want to do. So probably that I would continue on that side, but I'm glad that turned out differently overall.
Oh, really? That's an interesting one. All right, next, if you could have dinner with any tech pioneer, past or present, alive or dead, who would it be?
Steve Jobs.
Why?
I'm an Apple user since 2003. I remember the first Mac that I bought. I had to do 2 jobs because my first job didn't pay enough. So I was working as a shop assistant during the weekend, and with that money I was able to buy my first own Mac. I played with the Mac in 2003, but then the first one that I really owned was 2005, 4, 5, something like that.
Nice. Next one says, what's the best and worst thing about being a speaker at 150 plus conference?
Best part, people, without any doubt, and traveling the world. Very often I travel the world thanks to conferences, because I was lucky enough to let's say be on the stage from Japan to Silicon Valley, and I can guarantee you that I wouldn't go to certain places if it wasn't for conferences. So I'm pretty glad that experience enriched me personally, especially when I was traveling, because traveling is a fantastic way to enrich yourself. So that part and people are outstanding, and a great thing that I take away every time. Worst part, time, because I would like to spend more time with the people, and I would like to spend more time in the places. So usually those are the 2 things that I'm thinking about.
Wow, that is true. That's 100% true. Is you have to double with both and see That's true. That's true. Luca, it's been amazing. I learned a lot. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
being here, for giving us your
Thank you for having me.
No, of course, anytime, and you're more than welcome to join us any other time. Definitely, there's a lot to learn from you, and I'm 100% sure that everyone that is going to be watching this episode is going to learn a lot, especially because you bring a lot of combination of like how to think about solutions. You understand business, understand technology, community, and that definitely is something that is worth learning, and I hope that more and more people sign up to use. I'm gonna put it here so they can join you.
Thank you very much.
So I appreciate it so much. Anything that you want to do to say before closing?
No, I'm extremely thankful, honestly, for the opportunity to be in this podcast. I'm more than happy to come back if you feel that I can add more value. So just I'm waiting for your invite, and I will be there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. How you going?
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in today. We hope you found this podcast episode informative, engaging, and entertaining. We can't wait for you to joining us again for our next episode. Until then, let's keep exploring, learning, and making extraordinary things happen.